Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah, الذي ألف بالإسلام بين قلوب المؤمنين وأوجب الاتحاد وحرم التفرق في كتابه المبين. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله هدى من يشاء إلى صراط المستقيم، وأشهد أن سيدنا محمد رسول الله خير داع إلى طريق الكوين. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه الذين تحببت نفوسهم وتهدت قلوبهم فكانوا سادة المنصورين. أما بعد، فيا عباد الله، أوصيكم ونفسي أولا بتقوى الله تعالى وطاعته. That is, all praise is due to Allah, who has united the hearts of the believer in Islam and has made it an obligation to remain united, and has made it forbidden to become separated in his clear book. I bear witness that there is nothing worthy of worship except Allah, who guides to the straight path whom he pleases, and I bear witness that our leader Muhammad is the messenger of Allah and the best caller to the way that is straight. O Allah, send your prayers and your peace upon our leader Muhammad and upon his family and upon his companions, whose hearts were united and whose souls were educated, so that they became victorious leaders. And what follows thereafter, O believers of Allah, I advise you, as well as I advise myself, to first have the proper regard for Allah and thereafter be obedient to him. Dear believers, I greet you with the universal greetings of peace. Assalamu alaikum, which means peace be with you. Dear believer, this week we are looking at the attribute of Allah, that is Al-Jabbar, which means the restorer. And we see this restoring, this idea of restoration throughout our life, just in day-to-day activities. You know, we can think about those that talk about restoring vehicles, those that restore paintings, those that restore buildings. This idea of taking something that was once of value, something that once was coveted or appreciated, and then maybe over time the environment caused it to degrade. Maybe it got some wear and tear on it. Maybe it didn't have that same appeal. It didn't have that same look as when it was new, but it became restored. It was cleaned. It was touched up. Care was given to it. Attention was provided to it. And so this, dear believers, is what we think of when we think about Al-Jabbar, the creator being the restorer. And we know that only Allah can restore us to a place of enlightenment, or a place to where we may have the opportunity for paradise, especially if we get caught up in the environment. We start making choices and decisions that may remove us from our original nature, our worshiping nature, our nature to submit to Allah's will. So we need Al-Jabbar. We need to be restored. And so when we think about this idea of restoration, there's a story in the Quran where, and we know the story. It's very familiar. It's of Moses, the prophet Moses, and when he was a baby, his mother sent him away, and the daughter went to follow the baby, and when he got to the Pharaoh, she said, "Hey, I know somebody that can feed the baby." And so this is where this story or this verse in the Quran picks up, and it says, it says, "And we restored him to his mother to ease her eye, to soothe her eye, and so that she may not grieve, and so that she would know that the promise of Allah is true, but most do not understand." And so here Allah is talking about how, in this instance, how he restored the prophet Moses to his mother, where she got this message, or the angel told her that you need to send send your child away. And you have to think about it as a parent, if you're a parent, or if you're someone that has ever loved someone, and it's a little different for a parent, especially for a mother, that you had to take this baby that you've raised for a few years, that you've grown attached to, and have these attachments and this deep love for, and it went away. It had to go away because of the environment. This thing that you love went away because of the environment. And then you find out that you're able to see it again. And it's to cool your heart. Allah makes this happen. Allah makes this happen to cool your heart. Maybe it's to renew your faith. He restores that faith in you. He restores that faith in Him in you, because maybe you thought something that you had lost. You thought something that was out of your reach, something that you would never attain. You thought it was gone. But Al-Jabbar restored it. Just like He restored the prophet Moses for his mother, gave her the opportunity to be near him, gave her the opportunity to be there and to hold him and to comfort him, so that she wouldn't grieve, so she wouldn't be sad and wouldn't feel this emptiness in her heart, and so that she would know that the promise of Allah is true. And this is our situation, dear believers. This is our situation. Sometimes the thing that has left us, perhaps we were born Muslim, and perhaps the way that the environment was, the society, the way everything that culminated our choices, our decisions, where we were, the strength of our faith, perhaps it got away from us. And as we read the Quran, and maybe we listened to some lectures, maybe during Ramadan we come a little closer to the religion. And this is where we would hear Allah's promise that successful will be the believers. The believers shall not fear, nor shall they grieve. And so we heard these things. We heard these promises of Allah, and we felt empty when Ramadan was over. We would be sad. We weren't that same vibrant person that we were, because we no longer had that connection that we had when we were a child, because we let life, we let the environment, we let our choices weigh on us and get us dirty and cover us. And this is what we did. That voice kept saying that the believer will not grieve. The promise of Allah is true. But it wasn't until we returned back to our faith, it wasn't until we picked the Quran back up, we started going back to Jummah, we started praying, we began to establish prayer, that we begin to realize that Allah's promise is true. Because all these pains and these anxieties begin to leave us. Grief was gone. Our faith was renewed, because we were able to experience the mercy of Allah. Allah restored us. Allah brought us back. Allah thought so much of us, had so much care and compassion for us, that He restored us, that He took something so broken, something so damaged, and He restored you. And all He did was show you that His promise was true. So we have to ask ourselves, dear believers, what is it going to take for us to never doubt the promise of Allah again, so that we don't feel that grief, so that we don't feel like that piece of us is gone away, that piece of us that is so close to us. What is it going to take? أقول هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم والحمد لله رب العالمين آمين. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت آل إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت آل إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. Dear believers, Allah is the restorer. Allah is the one that can clean us up. Allah is the one that can bring us closer to Him. And so some of us maybe weren't born Muslim. Maybe we converted. And now we find ourselves in a situation to where things are changing for us. And in our environment now approaches us different. But we're restored now. And so as we think about Moses' mother in this instance, we can't help but think about our own mothers. We can't help but think about the prayers that our mothers made for us, that we would improve our life, that maybe we'd stop hanging out with those people that didn't have any good for us in mind. Or perhaps we would stop putting ourselves in situations that weren't healthy for us. Maybe we would get out of relationships that weren't good for us. Maybe we would be kinder to ourselves. And so they may have prayed in their own way. They may have prayed in their own way that you would make a change. And they may have sat up night after night crying to their Creator, crying to their Lord, crying to the one who has already restored them. Your mother may have been crying to her Creator for you. And now that she sees you, now that person who invested so much time in you may not be your mother, it may be your grandparents, maybe your father, maybe your grandfather, maybe your uncle, maybe your aunt. It may be someone in your life who has invested so much time in you because they knew that you could be better than what you were, that you had the capacity to be better than what you were expressing at that moment. And so they grieved. And they grieved and they were sad. And they may not have been Muslim, but they had the same inclinations as the mother of Moses, that maybe my child would become something good. Maybe if I could just see it. If I could just hear about it. If I could just read about it. If I could just know in my heart, dear God, if I could just know in my heart that this child that I love so much, that I cared for and that I held and I cried over, and perhaps they suffered in your birth, this child would make something of himself. Just so I know that your promise is true. This was your mother. This was that person who cared so much about you that they would cry to their Lord for you. And then you said, La ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah. In the restoration of yourself, as Allah Al-Jabbar restored you. When that person heard of that change you made, the changes you were making in your life, the way you carried yourself, the way you acted, the way you became someone new, became someone better, the person that they dreamed and hoped for. Your restoration restored them because they knew that the promise of Allah was true. They did not grieve anymore. The same way the mother of Moses was able to have her eyes cooled by knowing that her son was safe, knowing that her son had had been restored to her. So dear believers, this attribute of Al-Jabbar, the restorer, isn't necessarily just for us or just for someone else. It may be a collective restoration. What happens with us may be restoration for someone else, may remove the grief from someone else, may confirm that the promise of Allah is true to someone else by what happens in your life. So we have to be mindful, dear believers, of how we carry ourselves, of how we present ourselves, of what is the thing that others hear or know about us. And those actions, inshallah, God willing, will restore possibly their faith in God. Because somebody like you, capable of improving you, will restore, found God, found Allah, and then acted upon Allah's will. And they're like, if they can do it, so can I. In that action, Allah has restored them. Allah is Al-Jabbar. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم إن صلاتي ونسكي ومحياي ومماتي لله رب العالمين لا شريك له وبذلك أمرت وأنا أول المسلمين الحمد لله رب العالمين